First and foremost, the life of my father, Jose Julian Bonifacio, who passed away in 2019 from glioblastoma, which is an aggressive form of brain cancer. While many of these poems are elegies for my father, other poems are orisons, songs, and remembrances of my childhood play, of childhood trauma. Some of these poems, like the opening one, which I will start with, grapples also with borders and how borders shape the migrant experience. To the River We Are Migrants is a bilingual collection. So to give you a sense of the Spanish in the work, I will begin each poem with a stanza or a line from the Spanish language version, and then dive into the English version for all of you. So the first poem is Rio Piedra, and the title of the poem, and the poem itself cites from the title of Paulo Coelho's novel, which was translated from Portuguese into English, By the River Piedra, I Sat Down and Wept, a novel of forgiveness. Niños trompeteados de lugares de colores lejanos, tus pecados caligrafiados en tu piel y cara. River Piedra. Trumpeted children of far-hued places, sins calligraphed on your skins and faces. The hype is real. There's talk of building high, of blocking the sun, of raising a running shadow for runaways like you and me. We were once brothers without borders. They will no longer keep their brothers. We were once sisters in that lifetime when we birthed the earth. They will no longer keep their sisters. I reposed in the long shadow, avoiding the sun on my side of the wall, graffitiing my life on the weight of monuments. I bring you paz in bold type. Hail many, fallen gravely, look how the desert settles over our ancestral markings. Pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death, palm to palm, grounded eyes and knees, we've served you in your language. Quote, on the side of the River Piedra, I sat and wept, catching my breath, afraid of the bloodhounds, end quote. And what I forgot to do is to set a timer because I want to make sure I respect the time of others today. This other poem is titled Gente del Sol y la Luna. Somos un pueblo entero ahí en ese mar caribeño, de pie con nuestros antepasados, en bloques de subastas. People of the sun and moon. We are a whole people down in ese mar caribeño, standing with our ancestors on auction blocks, our bones and fragments, stiff like the sullied boards where milk met honey in our cauldron of locura. What mixed in that pit was kicked to slow tamboras, un dolor del color de coconuts beat by the sun. We are that island left de remate where the foaming beaches don't give a reflection, and we drink our traumas like a purgante. Like the moon now, with our one face always nearly falling into the earth. Que locura to always feel like both sides aren't black, for the face in the shadow is the same that harvests light. Mi taita, and taita is a word, a commonly used word in Dominican Spanish for father. Mi taita, coarse but fine, cleanly shaven, strict disciplinarian who grew up among the tangy orchards. Mi taita, you are a myth to me now. Does that make me one too? The flesh is a tragedy, then it turns to nothing. We share this ending that mixes in the wind. Though you are a dead star now, you still pull me into the baptismal river where I dreaded those rapid currents. Years have lapsed since you lifted us from our inherited montes and planted us here for others to grow. Time has made us strange, though. Between us, there's a name, a promise, now a symbol that is like a people, like a nation buried in guilt. Nací estadounidense. A la edad de 6 años, cuando un avión como una Santa Cruz me dio misericordia a mí y a mi familia en una ciudad vestida de blanco. Cada aliento era una neblina diminuta lejos de los almendros. I was born American at the age of 6, when the plane, like a holy cross, delivered mercy on me and my family in the city dressed in white. Every breath was a diminutive fog far from the almond trees. Some gilded codes once made a nation. Some constitutional jests of kindness brought others here, indebted to God, to our children, to our maladies. We come in paper planes when our motherlands liberate us. We become formless drifters, escaping. I've drunk from the jeweled stream, the same that washed the feet of campesinos and the faces of los niños from New York City that have forgotten the rocks and the currents. I've dragged myself through thick cities, lifting a lingua and letting loose another while backs turn to waves. I've learned and unlearned my language too many times. How can I speak like you can? Otros Mundos. This poem, perhaps I should provide some context for it, is an early memory of mine, the earliest memory I have actually of my brother and I sort of preparing ourselves to leave the Dominican Republic where we were both born for New York City to meet my father, who had been here since about 4 years before we arrived. And it's sort of a scene, very common scene, I guess, quotidian scene, I should say, of my grandparents sort of just, preparing us to leave and them sort of, in a way, mourning us because we're leaving them. Otros Mundos. Cuando era un niño de unos 6 años, llamé a los países mundos, other worlds. When I was a child of about 6, I called countries mundos. These were worlds that had to be traveled to through the sky. When it was time for us to leave our world, my grandmother's house filled up with people coddling tin cups of café. Ay, se me van a ir los muchachos, like an excerpt from an old bachata. Ay, 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 3 steps that got going back and forth in that little house. My brother and I, about the size of a mata, were readied to become immigrants. Ay, pero se me van los muchachos míos. Long farewells separate us like exoplanets. The idea of life in another almost promises to elude us, for it is unimaginable. We were naturalized in our new world, planted deep in the coarse concrete, growing any which way we could, coiling around rusting fences, enclosing courtyards that no one cared enough to clear, so we called home. In this mundo, we cannot beckon back the 20 years of time-space that have become the soft sounds of that bachata. Our carved childhoods expand like empty space until they are one with the deep blackness that holds the stars, that holds our memories. I'd like to actually read a couple from, I'm gonna finish with a new poem, if you guys don't mind, something that I'm actually experimenting with, but because I have time here, I'm gonna read a couple of poems that I guess from the book well, that I haven't included here, I think be nice. So this one is the penultimate poem in the collection, and it's titled El Río Mijo. And the Spanish begins, El Río Mijo. 1. En los caminos de tierra de mi pasado existen las historias de la mujer en blanco en el campo que siempre está embarazada con un niño muerto. El Río Mijo. 1. In the dirt paths of my past stand the stories of la mujer en blanco, who's always pregnant with a stillborn in the campo. She never moves or notices your shadow on her pale face. I think she is what I tell myself. 2. I've replaced her with my father in a Catholic hospital bed, his head wrapped like a nun's. Glioblastoma, the doctors say, as if to say, pray for him in both languages if you can. 3. Now, when only the wind can speak for him, my thoughts sail languidly into those Sunday mornings, the sounds of Perico Ripiao on full blast, him DJing in the living room, worshiping God with the guira, el acordeón, y la tambora. 4. I searched for myself in his hands, for my kid, who will ask about la mujer en blanco, who will ask, how was your father? I caressed his face and asked him, what do you dream about? He replied, El Río. The last poem in the collection, I remember I was actually in New York City. I was at BMCC and Miranda and I were colleagues there. And I got this weird phone call from a debt collector. It might've just been a con artist, I have no idea. And I remember them talking to me about my father's debts. And I'm like, that's interesting. You know, I thought about the concept of like paying the debts of a dead person and a dead father. And this poem came from that. Unknown caller. Llamador desconocido in Spanish. Tus deudas todavía me llaman directamente. Le explico que ya no estás aquí, que no puedo pagar las facturas de un muerto, incluso si él era mi padre. Unknown caller. Your debts still call me directly. I explain that you are no longer here, that I can't pay a dead man's bills, even if he was my father. I wonder how pigeons find their way into subway stations. They glide over embellished rails near waste, rats escaping the light behind the rippling boards. I never told you that the tunnels are perverse, that between stations there are errant newspapers, possessed syringes, and duffel bags full of ransom money adjacent to the rivers of graffiti. I pick up an unpleasant conversation. Both parties are sorry that there's money involved. Perhaps it's never a good time. Perhaps there isn't much in those old stations. Perhaps it is what you owe that keeps you alive. In my wallet, I carry your picture with washed receipts, a debt of what ifs. In this last one, I think we're out of time. Is that what that signal was?
It was my mistake.
Okay. Well, that actually works. No, this is the last poem I want to read for you all, and it's actually part of a collection that I'm working on now that experiments with prose poems, and it's a essentially it is a book of elegies in prose poetry. So this poem is entitled Snakes in the Grass, and the Spanish version is Culebras en la hierba. Culebras en la hierba. Hay culebras en la hierba. Caminamos junto al río con la esperanza de distraernos. El viento en la hierba vibra. Snakes in the grass. There are snakes in the grass. We walk by the river, hoping to distract ourselves. The wind in the grass rattles. It is soft and warm. 545 migrant children are separated from their parents. And there is a snake in the grass. The desert is dry for 1 million years. There are bones in the grass, turning to oxygen particles. The snake moves on its underside. Our mouths fill with air. One of them curls tightly on my leg, making me pulse with its heart. I let it squeeze me tight. I watch you from the grass. The river does not move us. The grass is yellow and tall toward the sun. And thank you all so much.
Thank you so much. That was very beautiful. It's really weird to get man hype after a poem, right? Because poems are so like you sit down and you rest with them, but I'm getting hype for you. Hey. Should we move on to the next one? Are we ready for the party music? Okay, next up is Rocio Carlos. Rocio attends from the land of the Chaparral, born and raised in Los Angeles. She is widely acknowledged to have zero short-term memory, but knows the names of trees. She's the author of The Other House, The Accomplices / Civil Coping Mechanisms, Attendance, the Operating System, and A Universal History of Infamy, Those of This America, Golden Spike Press. Her poems have appeared in Chaparral, Angeles City Review, The Spiral Orb, and Cultural Weekly. She was selected as a 2003 PEN Emerging Voices Fellow. She collaborates as a partner at Wirecutter Collective and is a teacher of the language arts. Her favorite trees are the Olm, which is the elm, and the aliso, which is the sycamore. Welcome.
Quiero saludos Nueva York desde Los Ángeles. Lástima no estar ahí en persona, pero pronto familia, pronto estaremos juntos todos. Thank you so much for having me, for having all of us, Nita. Thank you, Sunday Salon. Thank you, Leslie Ann, for introducing us. It feels weird. It never stops feeling weird to be like this, but inshallah, one day soon. So I'm reaching you all from the traditional unceded homelands of the Tongva people. I acknowledge also the Hahamonga and the neighboring Tatabiam and Chumash nations. I do this to counter the doctrine of discovery and resist the erasure of indigenous Californians. I stand with my community and kin against anti-Black and anti-Asian colonialist violence and in solidarity with struggles of indigenous Americans. Thank you for having me. So I don't know what weather it is with all of y'all, but it's like 88 and windy in LA, which is panic. Because people think California is the land of dreams, but it's really the land of things burning. So I'm just like, and this is chaparral. That's our ecological system here. So I'm going to read a little bit of a lot of stuff for you. And the two books I'm working on now, because I don't like to have nice things in my brain. One is called The End of Lent, and the other one is called The Sad Girl Playlist. So ekphrasis, and then also, obviously, Lent is what it sounds like. But I'll start with this piece. Puentes. Alguna frontera, algún río, algún desierto, algún mar, algún campo, algún huerto, alguna boca, algún lenguaje, alguna herencia, algún cuento de hadas, alguna oración, algún mapa, algún puente peregrina para cruzar, para no olvidar aquel lugar que ya no está, que nunca estuvo. Here's a crossover. One of the main streets here that goes through past where Sunset begins in downtown LA, the bridge that crosses into the east side, or East LA or Boyle Heights, used to be called Brooklyn or La Brooklyn. And now it's called Cesar Chavez. And these are the bridges. Brooklyn, Chavez. The word spandrel, shoulders, arches, clavicle of the arch, helixes racing toward telephone wire, that is, toward nothing. The word Brooklyn in my parents' mouths, the article la. Begin, cartographer, to trace, begin in the mouth, a bridge, umbilical, a place of tether, and end here. 4th Street, Viaduct, Gothic Revival. To hell and back is what you used to say, hell being other people or just a past without you. Girl from Malabar, from the back of the bus, summer at Roosevelt High. Motifs referring to trefoils, blooms and triangle. A couple of Mexican girls in love. And through our mouths go back in time. Our mothers from a white coast, a place of thirst past the north and the vastness of pines. Your tongue, my place of death, to enter, barely warned. 1st Street, toward her. Not along electric cables. You remember before those faulty lines that the earth swallows naughty children. You drool the word yes, not along the glitter pavement. You toddle home in leather shoes at 2, at 32. Occasional runners graze your stockings, always torn. Not at the hive of the song. You sing for the death of her mouth, for the key to a door with no lock. A trumpet calls for the lost boy, and you answer, here. I love mariachi, and because I like to cry. And one of my favorites is an instrumental piece called El Niño Perdido, and it's got 2 trumpets. And it's like a Marco Polo situation. The first trumpet plays with the mariachi, right? And they'll play a little melody. And then from somewhere, you don't know where, because the other person hid, you hear the response. So someone, one trumpet is like, where are you, lost boy? And from somewhere you hear, here I am, here I am. And so and everybody's like trying to be like, where is it? And then the person comes. Anyway, since I'm talking about mariachi, might as well, if I can find it, or I'll get there. I have so many, I have my notes app, I have a Pages, I have a Google Doc, I have my book. So it's like everywhere, right? And I don't have a printer right now. So it's like, ni modo, as they say. Although I think for now, because these are these times. I said to the interviewer that I do not have religious guilt, and I don't. I have fields of unturned soil and cuts from the cotton, and cold in my bones, and the coyote song, and not no shoes, but broken shoes, and translation and translation and translation. And if I hear one more person saying, it isn't right to let little children know adult troubles, then God help me, build that time machine and you translate those amnesty documents, not me. And you recite the Pledge of Allegiance, not me. And you learn to count by counting wars in my language, not me. I needed to live, understand? I was sent into the forest and I needed to know the wolf's name and say, I too am from wolves. What I wanted to tell you, you found out before I did. Everyone gets a dead friend eventually. Our mother couldn't teach us that because she never had friends, only restless sisters and hungry brothers. Being born first is supposed to mean, I'll look so you don't have to, except that time you had to. We are losing our eyesight together, little sister. I will say it was wrong to be too good at just facing things, bruising your legs as I lifted you out of the crib and put you in the stroller to go look for our mother. You were so small, and I was already a bad person. I realized I could kill someone if they meant you ill when I was 7 years old. I should have stopped trying to be good then, for it has brought both of us nothing but sorrow. When you were children together, rolling down the hills of garbage near the sea in Rosarito, yelling to your mothers that there is a tongue, a human tongue, it is a pepper, in a heap, it doesn't occur to you that one of you will be dead before you're 40. And you forget words for this grief as you wash your face with cold water on Christmas Day. There is a sea, the tired horse is running beside it. There is a gray sky. It must be Holy Week. This must be spring break. Your hair is braided the same way. You run like the horses on the wet sand and write your names. In the hills, people burn their garbage. You forget if it is spring or late summer. Eldest, of what? What is my obligation here? My mother's sister waking up today without her eldest. My mother desperate to go to her, your own little sister crying in the kitchen. Things you say to her. It's so dangerous. You don't know how many people will be there, which house it will be at, who is sick and doesn't know. But your diabetes. If something happens, there won't be an ambulance like there was last time. If you're taken to a hospital, that will be it. We'll never see you again. They're closing the borders. And none of this might matter. She may well see the flames of hell in front of her, but her sister is on the other side of it, calling for her. They say something here about wild horses, but you can't remember what just now. What you remember is your dead cousin being dead. There is no poetry for that. There is poetry for goodbye, for your mother already driving along the Salton Sea, pronouncing your name as the oceans roar, the sound of so many bones. I got religion when I was 4, and there wasn't even a church, or there was, just long enough to catch me from being all animal. Every small life in my hands is a bird's prayer. It's not just hello, it's also thank you and why. Or in my throat, the lump. I go for walks and I am afraid to begin, so the day gets hotter. I suck on an inhaler in lieu of making the sign of the cross. I walked on a hill that I will barely trudge over. I do this in memory of me. I live dangerously. I walk on the side of the street where a woman once said out loud, "No, you kill her," as I passed in front of her. We inoculate ourselves, but the night keeps coming. There was a little, internet trend, like say it without telling me or whatever. So people were asked to say their name or introduce themselves as the meanings of their name. And my name is a funny thing to me. I was named after my mom's favorite singer, a woman named Rocio Carlos, who is technically a Spaniard, but like made her career really shine in Mexico so much so that like they kept half of her ashes. I don't know how it works. And you know, I'm fine with my name. People didn't mess it up until I started having to like be around white people, which is like around college. And I went to Cal State LA, which is like the Brown Howard, okay? But like I never really had to correct people except one time I came home like crying. And this is just like the worst like immigrant parents humor where they take something that hurts you and think it's hilarious. I was like, and my mom's like, what's wrong with you? She's like, the substitute called me Rocio. My mom thought it was the funniest thing she ever heard and made that my permanent nickname. So, so she calls me Rocky. Anyway, this is my, and it's one of these, one of my ekphrastic poems. So I'll tell you all the songs and things it's after. So this is called Pentecost / Namesake, and it's after the songs Rocío de Todos los Campos by Natalia Lafourcade, I Can Hardly Wait by PJ Harvey, Do You Love Me, Nick Cave, Every Tear Disappears, St. Vincent, and the poem Malinche by Vanessa Angelica Villarreal. Hello. My name is Saltwater Spray, dew of the fields, mother of the taken away sun, lady of the southern savannah, patroness of the stateless people. My name is the droughted grassland in May, the speckled flank of horses carrying me through the tall reeds, my hands amber as the grain waving. I say to my dispossessed children, let me be your comfort and vessel, you, your sovereign and beloved. They clamor, my children. They sing as though sobbing. My name is a lady of song, queen of rancheras whose heart is halved between this continent and the other. I am the song in my mother's throat when she calls me eldest, the needle on the record as I turn it over to another side of wailing. I am keeper of the cleanest house. My temple is Immaculada. We do not burn candles here, or we do, but we wait for Father to fall asleep. My Lent is this one, the 40 days until Pentecost. I wait in glass coffins. I am my own reliquary. I hold my own bones. I will not cut my hair, and when I do, I will lay it at my own feet. I will not drink the burning water or burn down this house. I will wear my various sorrows in my teeth for a change. And when you take me out to dress me in my spring shroud, I will show you my teeth. Thank you everyone for listening. Thanks for showing up. I'm so glad to be with all of you. Thanks Nita, thanks CCN, Leslie, I'm sorry. I'm so nervous. I'm so nervous. Ya,
No.
se acabó el martirio, ya.
Stand up.
Rocio, thank you so much. That was so beautiful. I wrote down a lot of your lines. Everyone gets a dead friend. We're losing our eyesight together. There's so much beauty in it. They were just like, I was like, I need to write it down. You're going too fast. So thank you so much. That was really beautiful. Next up, we have Sammy Miranda. Okay, I'm looking at you to make sure I did a good job.
You good.
Okay.
It's all good.
He is a poet, teacher, and visual artist. His writing has been included in various print and online journals. He is the author of Departure, a chapbook published by Central Square Press, and We Is, published by Zozo Bra Publishing. He's currently working on projects that place him in conversation with musicians and visual artists and lead to the creation of work in collaboration. His visual art has been exhibited in Washington, D.C., Madrid, New York, and Puerto Rico. Welcome.
I'm just gonna add my thanks to everybody again for this lineup, Nita, for having us, Leslie, Chiwan. It's like, this is just, it's already started to be just a wonderful like part of the day, you know. So appreciate you all and everybody who's come to listen as well. I'm gonna start off with a piece that I actually composed cutting pieces of National Geographic magazines out. So all the words in the poem were actually cut out of National Geographic magazines from like the 1950s to the 1980s. And this piece is called Protection from Predators. A young man asked his father why Blacks born in the United States feel unwelcome. Ask one of the Americans who survived. Oh Lord, won't you buy me protection from predators, armor against decay? Listen, this is tough to admit. Time has not eased the grief of a woman whose son died. Prayer softens hard times for families. I would like to think that, but no. One day I called on Nina. She still smelled of charred flesh, raising a hymn on Sunday, barbed but beautiful. This song should be sung only by its owners. So when I was a kid, I was super introverted. And in high school, I cut a lot of class. And when I cut class, I grew up in the Bronx. I would hop on the subway and head downtown. So let me look at the page number for study. So in the last couple of months, I've been doing a series of self-portraits at different stages in my life. And this is the self-portrait as a high school student looking to be anonymous on the subway. Self-portrait in Lee jeans and suede Pumas. There is nothing to see here. Nothing out of the ordinary. Just another passenger on the downtown bound 5 train, looking for silence in the rumbling of train, track, and tunnel, searching for anonymity in rush hour crowds, cassette bought and dropped into Walkman, soundtrack sampled. And then this is another piece that kind of falls into that. I grew up in the Bronx, in the projects. And this is called Hiding Place. The doorway to your favorite hiding place is the Prospect Avenue station, where you pop over the turnstile when you hear the train coming. On the platform, place your headphones on your ears, press play on some house or some Latin hip hop, choose between the 2 or the 5, both heading into Manhattan. Choose the 2, but do not hide yourself. There are things you need to say, things that others need to hear. Leave your mouth. When you want to disappear, do it knowing that when you step off the 2 train heading downtown and get lost in a crowd of people who do not notice you because they are lost in worlds you make up for them, you need to return. Mouth cluttered with words to organize, eyes crowded with images you will translate, ears composing notes into a song that you will turn into. You need to return to that project apartment and the brother whose voice is so much louder than yours, and the mother whose silence is mirrored in you, and the father who sings off key, who loves another, and the sisters who you never quite understood. And let sound fall from your mouth, even if it is a wail to let loose the years of holding back tears, even if it is a curse, a fuck, a motherfucker, a coño, even if it is a single word, any word that you yell with the door of apartment 2A open, standing in the threshold so it echoes in those empty hallways and slides under door jams to a person who needs to hear it. One of the other exercises I've been doing is I interact with a lot of visual artists, so I mean, it's like fast poetry, but I always call them conversations with artwork. Usually, it's conversations with artwork by artists that I know. And I'm gonna read two pieces that are in conversation with a photographer who lives in Queens, an Ecuadorian photographer, 56 and 58. So her photographs are absolutely stunning. Her name is Karen Miranda Rivadeneira. Check out her work if you can. And this one is called Santos y Diablos. Sometimes we need to sit with our diablos. Let them decide the menu items to be brought to the table. Let them read the newspaper aloud and lie about the saintliness of war and the holiness of hunger. Let them make it so we need to bum a cigarette and light it with a match, so the smell of sulfur stings the nose. Inhale deeply and let the smoke burn our lungs, so we are reminded that hell is just another place to meet for a meal. Sometimes we need to let them stroke our arms or press their fingers into our shoulders and whisper shit about the santos que se han colado, disguised as the diablos they want to be, the masks just as bright, just as colorful, but just don't sit right on the face, looking that they are meant to cover something other than the blemishes collected on the skin over centuries of sinning. Don't let the saints fool you. They declined the original invitation to sit at the table and share in the delicacies that La Doña de la Cocina cooked on her fogón. Acted like malcriados, raised without manners. Then, after remembering the pleasure in sinning, snuck in through the back door to sample the things they gave up for sainthood, realizing we all need a little sin in our lives. And the next one is called Mal de Ojo. And it's, that whole protection from the evil eye. Okay. There is always someone watching, waiting to bring something down on you. Always someone whose eye invades the balance between spirit and body. Someone who will compliment a child and forget to offer up a blessing, protection against petty spirits who want to prove that nothing is more beautiful than them. And always someone to block the path that evil winds down. Maybe a mother who knows the power of crucifixes, el divino niño, and an egg touched to a body dressed only in its skin. Curandera, who understands the rezos, los siete jarabes, Florida water, sage, and tobacco, and practices the rituals that drive fever from the body, pushing it to find its way into a glass of water placed under the bed or on a nightstand where it can no longer heat flesh into discomfort. There is always the non-believer who does not understand the medicine of an elder's memory and its connection to ancestors who add their breath to the smoke blown from the lips of descendants who have learned how healing is passed down. I'm gonna read a couple of pieces from my book We Is. This one is called This Ain't Mambo, and I know a lot of people love themselves some West Side Story. I hate that shit. There's like one Puerto Rican in the whole damn movie. Come on, man, come on. So this ain't Mambo, and it's actually in a conversation with a piece by Adal, who's a Puerto Rican artist. And if you don't know his work, you should check him out. He's got some great stuff. Adios, 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 Borinquen querida. My ulcers sing this song to remember home, to help me survive this place. Shots heard, pacata pikiti, or is that Tito playing his timbal? Sticks on skin always remind me of gunfire and dancing. Baila Maria, baila Maria. I just met a girl named Maria. And no matter how she mambos, she ain't never gonna be Puerto Rican. While Maria dances, Anita wraps herself in red to mourn. She heard the Plena report, tapped out on panderos, goat skin screaming, Bernardo está muerto. And Chino killed Tony because he picked up a girl named Maria who wasn't from Sicily or Arthur Avenue. Chino killed him for treason against his own kind. Breaking news. The mixing is not accepted by either side. The dead are dead and the living are dancing a dance they never figured out. No one was meant to lead. This ain't mambo, motherfucker. So I guess I pack up my leather suitcase with warnings from Officer Krupke, promises from Munoz Marin, and maybe a santito or two. Because while I sang my goodbyes, I made promises too. Un día volveré a buscar mi querer. Not Maria, more like Anita, but still somebody else's idea of her. I guess I'll finish out with a piece that's in two parts, and it's a guzzle. I wrap feet in streets of burial claw so I can remember why I travel. I watch others leave until their bodies become a distance to travel. I pound my chest, driving away the demons of silence brought by departure, each slap marking the tempo that my feet will keep as I travel. My feet are wrapped tightly, but I do not slide them into shoes. I want the soles to feel the road, to blister, to be cut by the miles I travel. I do not want to leave. This is not a road I have chosen to follow. This is an exile demanded by guns and bombs, so I must travel. There is no need for you to describe loss. I revisit the image daily. It has helped me map the road that will pull the breath from me as I travel. The road is not a place you return from, not a place to believe in. I have left belief behind with the carcass of a home that bid me travel. Your eyes are open wide. They stare at a sky full of stars. Are the constellations a single entity or a multitude of stars? The heavens seem to tremble if you stare long enough. Do your eyes see the couples dancing in the brightness of the stars? Do Orion and Cassiopeia listen to boleros, filling the space between them? Do they grab hold when no one is watching and dance, or are they just stars? Is this a magic trick, an illusion that plays with your position in relation to the night sky, making you see more than just stars? Does a sight of the North Star fill you with fear, make you think departure will be necessary, make you close your eyes to banish the stars? Or do you welcome the beauty of an open ocean and the sky made brighter by the presence of constellations telling the story of the stars? Is this your story? One where darkness is filled only with the light of small dots spread over the miles you must travel, a road of stars.
Sammy, thank you. One of your poems reminded me of myself in high school because, you know, I was introverted in high school and I used to cut school to go home because I know no one would be home. So I would have that time alone. So that just took me back. Thank you so much. Okay, last on the list is Michelle Peñaloza. I've been practicing for like 10 minutes. Michelle is the author of Former Possessions of the Spanish Empire, winner of the 2018 Hillary Griffin Dick National Poetry Prize. She's also the author of 2 chapbooks, Landscape Heartbreak and Last Night I Dreamt of Volcanoes. The proud daughter of Filipino immigrants, Michelle was born in the suburb of Detroit and raised in Nashville, Tennessee. She now lives in the rural Northern California on the land of the Wrong Valley Indian tribes. Michelle, welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Leslie Ann. Thank you, Sammy, Ayendy.
They got nothing on us. Nothing on us. Nothing on us. Nothing on us. Island woman rise, walang makakatigil. Brown woman rise, alamin ang iyong ugat. They got nothing on us. Nothing on us. Nothing on us. Isang bagsak. Yo, fuck a story arc if it don't involve no.
I forgot that I had an intro. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. Thank you so much to Sammy, Ayendy, and Rocio. So wonderful to be here. Thank you, Nita, for having us. And thank you, Leslie Ann, for your lovely intros. I'll start with this one. Former possessions of the Spanish Empire. People name us with the separation of their teeth, the long Z of our naming. It used to be we were named for our proximity. Kato tabing dagat, the parentage of the sea. The forest's lineage, Kato ginubatan. Or we were named for our parents, Anak ni Lina, Bunso ni Boyet. The song of our names led to the discovery of garlic growing from our palms, the scapes forming a second green hand. But it was in the name of good King Philip that songs changed to names and the naming of names became law. A governor general made a name for himself with the Catalogo de Apellidos, a dissemination of empire, a naming of parts to trace and tax everyone. Whole provinces renamed with efficient alphabetical phenomena. Padilla, Pacheco, Palma, Paz, Perez, Portillo, Puente, Peñalosa. Still, there were names we kept to ourselves, a shorthand between us, windows lined with votives, jars of holy water, the papaya's lush coral and beaded seeds, shining fish roe. Can legacy exist in shorthand? Papal, papa, papel, papaya, paalam, permission, please. What are the root words for what we simply know? How do children born of empire, once removed, possess the history of their naming? So like Rocio was saying, this is never not weird. So I'm always like I feel like in person, I'm like, banter is like a thing I can do with people like in a room with me, but it's hard around Zoom. It's like very unnatural. But I really appreciate being here with all of you, and thank you for taking the time out on your Sunday to enjoy poems. And I've just been so moved by the previous 3 poets too. So I'm like having trouble being like, okay, you have to read now. Okay. California. Crows feed on unmet seed. The gophers track sinkholes all the way to your front door. unintentional moat, keeping what out, keeping what in. The history of greed still draws its lines in this valley. The West, not won, stolen. Every day is a truck driving through an ancient forest, knocking down trees that take 400 years to grow. The land, does it find all of this violence blasé? Been there, still here? Is that how my mother feels when I call her angry about the world? I get it. She's a survivor, a master of alignment. Better, the lines she knows than the ones she could never draw. Every day is a truck driving through an emptying field. Blood is the compost that makes this grass grow so tall. This one it's called Failed Self-Portraits. As last cigarette, as Claudia Kishi, as half-eaten baguette, as drunk bumblebee, as cowboy boots, as bamboo shoots, as plastic Adirondack chair, as never should have been permed hair, as telenovela translation, as nope, wrong Asian, as 90s girl group R&B, as little falling boutique. I'm reading most of the new shit, so I got my little paper packet here. Okay, why not end this experiment? My mother believes we were not ready. Does she believe in the camps, the carnage? The price for insurrection, for unwillingness to enact burden, burden placed as yoke. I first learned the word yoke from the Oregon Trail, an integral part of manifesting destiny, joining animals, joining shoulders to carry a load, a device for the neck of the defeated. What can I offer my mother when we cannot agree on the truth? I send her flowers. I fill a digital Costco cart with dehydrated shiitake mushrooms and nuts she's not supposed to eat. I ask how she makes her miswa. She tells me church is safe, that everyone wears a mask, that the Holy Spirit and the love of our Lord Jesus Christ keeps her safe. What we don't say between thank you and upo or patola and I'm glad you are safe is a wound. I read somewhere that imposter syndrome finds its roots in childhood, that the emotional unavailability of a child's caregivers makes a child prove and prove again their worth. I tell my mother, my friend has died. My friend who was like a mother. My mother asks first, where? I try not to fixate on how she always finds the wrong thing to say. As a child, I corrected her pronunciation as she read me bedtime books. In college, I confessed that memory to a white professor, my shame rising to my face. Isn't that messed up? Her blue eyes rolled, exasperated. You're being so sentimental. All that means is you're a writer and have been from the beginning. Here are things I know. My titas hide their cravings, pretend they don't want pig's blood, that their mouths don't water when I open a jar of bagong. I know my mother made a life for herself, despite always being the one to kill what must be killed. So my mom has, because I like post on social media that I do readings, she has like come to some of them and I'm always like, is she here at this one? I hope so. It's a whole thing. You know, your poets know, other poets in this room know. Okay, let's do this one. And I'm like, I hope none of my titas are here either. All right. You can't scare me. Or I hope they are, you know, it's both, right? You can't scare me. My tita texts me a picture of a t-shirt that reads, "You can't scare me, my wife is Filipino." A mid-flap Filipino flag frames, "You can't scare me, my wife is," while a cartoon machete punctuates the oversized punchline, "Filipino." My tita texts to ask if I want one for my white husband. And for a moment, I picture him as one of the white men at a Phil-Am barbecue. "Oh no, I'll just stick to the lumpia," getting sunburnt and drinking Coors, whispering to his wife to tell her friends to only speak English when he's around. And I hold down the ha-ha button on my tita's text, my laughter bubbling next to her question. And I reply, "I don't think he'd wear it, but thank you." And I don't write, but I think about all the times I've heard her say, "We're not Filipino, we're American." And how many times I've been asked when I came to America and what it means for the whole of your life to be determined by having been born in one place and not the other. And my tita replies, "Okay, everyone else wanted one." And I don't know if she means my other titas each wanted one for their white husbands too, or if the white men they married, my uncles, each wanted one for themselves. But the more I think about it, the more I think about what a woman might want a machete for. Clearing a path of balete roots, scaling fish, opening a coconut, keeping a man an arm and a machete's length away from you. Okay. And maybe I'll end on a love poem. I meant to do a timer. I have no idea how much time I've taken or how much I have left. And so I will just read just one more love poem. And also this short haiku, real quick. Inspiration. Maxine Hong Kingston says she writes haiku daily. She's like the best muse. That was so fun when I wrote it. It makes me giggle every time I read it. Okay, and this is my last one. Thank you all so much. This has been so lovely. Yeah, it's really, been really, really lovely. Just saying, I'm sorry I ate all the beef jerky. I know you wanted some, but I ate it all. It was salty and chewy and delicious. You make fun of me for turning everything into a poem. Farming's taught me how hard it is to actually turn anything that runs on a gas motor. The ditch witch and the rototiller pull you forward and only in the direction you choose to go first. A pull in only one direction is what I feel most these days, why I stuff my face with beef jerky. We've sunk our money into the ground, hoping what grows will turn into money and that money will turn into the life we're trying to grow. Calm down, I'm not talking kids, but I am trying to talk about something like abundance, which comes from Latin abundantia, meaning overflowing, like the way you fill our cups with water each night and place them on our nightstands, because we need to stay hydrated. I'm always wanting and needing so much. Can need be overflowing? Can need brim over? I'm sure there's something here I could relate to farming, how it's not about transformation so much as moving mass, pallets of dirt, buckets of compost tea, from one place to another, the wheelbarrow always in use, never resting, full of seabird pellets, with so much depending not upon it, but upon the strength or weakness of our arms on any given day. These days, I don't write anything down, but I listen. I actually hear the sound wings make when birds fly. What else could be more like a poem? Maybe that face you made when I did not answer when you asked, what happened to all the beef jerky? That's it for me. Thank you all.
Nothing on us. nothing on us. Isang bagsak, goddess of guerrilla warfare in every lifetime. We don't take no shit except an oppressor's lifeline. If you step out of your line, I will protect what's mine. Kahit merong rosaryo, sino magliligtas sa'yo? Puro dugo, pugot ulo, mulat sa...
Oh, that's the songs of New York, if you're hearing it. Michelle, that was so beautiful. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Now, Nita, I'm going to take it over. I'm going to turn it over to Nita.
Thank you, Leslie Ann. You did a great job pronouncing. Thank you so much. Would you please give I mean, that was gorgeous, really, truly heartrending. And, you know, I'm crying to myself. Thankfully, I was muted and laughing. Would you all please give a round of applause, virtual applause, to our 4 fantastic poets, Ayendy and Rocio and Sammy and Michelle. I did like drop their book covers in the chat, but you know, you can find them online and buy their books and read more of their beautiful work because it is truly beautiful. And I could just start to see the through line in all of their poetry. It just really sang, it really sang. So thank you so much, poets. You are so blessed. I am blessed. Thank you to Leslie Ann Murray for bringing that joy in her introductions and that arm wave. I love it. Leslie Ann, you're fantastic. Check out Brown Girl Book Lover online. She interviews all these fantastic writers and poets. And of course, DJ Snax O'Clock, Chiwan Choi, thank you so much for bringing the music and your fun presence, Chiwan. I don't know where you are because I don't have us on gallery here. Okay, there you are. There you are, Chiwan. Thank you, Chiwan. Thank you all for coming. It's been great. I just have been looking at the chat. So, you know, I know there's some of you tuning in from near and far as Germany, as far as Ethiopia, at least for a little bit. I know that there was a friend tuning in from Addis and from Queens. I see you, Nana. There's a lot of other poets here. So fantastic to see other poets and writers. Anna, I see you. And also BMCC colleagues, Holly, I see you. Thank you all for coming. This was our Ananda, congratulations too. We've got some, and Jose Gonzalez, I see you, Evelise, and Joanne. Okay, I'm starting to see some more folks. Thank you to Poets and Writers for sponsoring this once again. And I'm probably forgetting folks, but I really do appreciate you all being here on this Sunday. So thank you. And please tune in, like, you know, probably in the fall. You know, I think I'm going on hiatus for a little bit, but there might be someone taking over for a little, another virtual event. So stay tuned, as in Chiwan Choi. So stay tuned. All right. I'm gonna actually, I forgot that I was recording this. I'm gonna stop recording.
I want